Level 1. The error. The break room refrigerator emits a high-pitched mechanical whine that you have learned to tune out. You are sitting in a cracked plastic chair that tilts slightly to the left. The fluorescent light above you flickers every 12 seconds. Your lunch break ends in exactly 4 minutes. You pull out your phone and open your banking app. The screen loads to reveal a checking account balance of $142.11. Your auto insurance premium of $168 will draft at midnight. The math does not work. It has not worked for 3 years. You switch over to your brokerage app. There is exactly $10,000 sitting in the cash sweep account. This money took you 4 years of skipped meals and missed holidays to accumulate. It was supposed to be the emergency fund that finally let you sleep through the night. You decide today is the day you stop looking at it and park it in a safe, slow-moving index fund. You type the 3-letter ticker symbol for the S&P 500 ETF into the search bar. Someone in the hallway drops a heavy box, causing you to flinch. Your thumb slips on the digital keyboard. You miss the final letter by 1/4 of an inch. You hit the market buy button without looking closely at the confirmation screen. The order fills immediately. You put your phone in your pocket and walk back to your desk. At 4:15 p.m., the workday ends. You sit in your car in the parking lot to let the engine warm up. You open the brokerage app to see your new index fund. The screen takes unusually long to load. When the pixels finally settle, the chart is not a slow, steady slope. It is a violent, vertical green line that breaks the top axis of the graph. You look at the ticker symbol. It is not the index fund. It is a micro-cap pharmaceutical company you have never heard of. 50 minutes ago, the FDA announced emergency approval for their flagship patent. The stock price at 1:12 p.m. was 2 cents per share. The stock price right now is $20.90. The total value of your account is $10,450,000. The blood drains from your face so fast your vision narrows into a dark tunnel. A cold sweat breaks out across your collarbone. Your stomach violently contracts. Your hands begin to shake with such force that the phone slips from your grip and falls into the gap between the car seats. You cannot breathe. You are suffocating in the front seat of a 2014 sedan. You dig the phone out with trembling fingers. The number has gone up by another $50,000. You drive home in complete silence. You do not turn on the radio. You do not turn on the lights when you unlock your front door. You sit on the edge of your bed in the dark. You have not sold the shares. You have not told anyone. You are entirely alone in a quiet room, carrying the weight of a completely different life. Level 2, the ghost in the room. The alarm goes off at 6 a.m. You did not sleep. You spent the entire night staring at the ceiling, feeling your pulse thud against your ribs. At 3:14 a.m., you open the app just to make sure the money was still there. It was. You take a shower and put on the same uniform you wear every day. The fabric feels completely different against your skin. You drive the same route to work, but the streets look like a movie set. You walk through the glass doors of your office building. Everything is exactly where you left it yesterday. The receptionist complains about the temperature in the lobby. Your manager stops you in the hallway to point out a minor error on a spreadsheet. He speaks to you slowly, as if you are slightly incompetent. You nod and apologize. You are carrying $10 million in your pocket. You could buy the building, fire him, and demolish the parking lot. Instead, you promise to fix the spreadsheet by noon. You sit at your desk and stare at your computer monitor. The absurdity of your physical reality is deafening. You are participating in a pantomime. You type an email about a delayed shipment while the net worth of a minor celebrity rests quietly on your phone. Every conversation around you sounds hollow. Cokers argue about the price of gas. They complain about the cost of a sandwich at the deli downstairs. You listen to them and feel an unbearable sense of isolation. You are a ghost haunting your own life. You go to the restroom and lock yourself in a stall just to look at the screen again. The market is open. The stock is fluctuating. You watch your net worth drop by $40,000 in 6 seconds. You watch it rise by $80,000 a minute later. You realize You cannot hold this position. The volatility is tearing your nervous system apart. You press the sell button to liquidate the entire portfolio. The confirmation screen asks if you are sure. You swipe to execute. The order fills. Your account balance now reads $10,380,000 in cash. You let out a breath that you feel like you have been holding since yesterday afternoon. It is done. Level 3, the settlement. The cash is in the account. You tap the transfer button to send the money to your bank. A red warning text appears at the bottom of the screen. Funds unavailable for withdrawal. You stare at the letters. You search the brokerage help section. You learn about the T+2 settlement rule. Cash from a stock sale is not real until 2 full business days have passed. For 48 hours, the money exists in a digital purgatory. You have to wait. You stop eating. The smell of food makes your stomach turn. Your jaw aches from clenching your teeth in your sleep. You lose 4 pounds by Wednesday morning. Every time your phone vibrates, a spike of adrenaline shoots through your chest. You are terrified the brokerage will realize you bought the stock by mistake and reverse the trade. You are terrified the company will go bankrupt before the cash settles. You are terrified of everything you cannot control. Thursday morning arrives. The 2 days are over. You open the app while sitting at your kitchen table. The cash balance has moved from unsettled to available. You feel a brief, blinding flash of pure relief. You navigate back to the transfer screen. You select your checking account from the drop-down menu. You type in the full amount. You press submit. The screen freezes for 3 seconds. A yellow banner suddenly stretches across the top of your portfolio. Account restricted. Please contact the Apex Clearing Risk Management Department immediately. The available cash balance instantly drops to 0. A padlock icon appears next to your account number. Level 4, the voice of the system. You dial the toll-free number provided in the yellow banner. The automated system places you on a brief hold. The hold lasts for 47 minutes. You sit on your couch, staring at the blank television screen, listening to royalty-free jazz. Your partner sends you a text asking if you paid the rent yet. You ignore it. Your partner sends a second text saying, "The landlord left a note on the door." You swipe the notification away without reading the rest of it. Nothing else matters right now except the music playing in your ear. The music stops. A man's voice comes on the line. He identifies himself as an investigator with the Anti-Money Laundering and Fraud Division. He asks for your name, your date of birth, and the last 4 digits of your social security number. His tone is perfectly flat. He asks you to explain the trade placed on Monday at 1:14 p.m. You try to keep your voice steady. You tell him you meant to buy an index fund and made a typo. The investigator does not speak for 6 seconds. The silence feels like a physical weight pressing down on your throat. He tells you that executing a highly specific trade on a virtually unknown microcap stock exactly 40 minutes before an unannounced FDA approval is statistically improbable. He tells you that the Securities and Exchange Commission utilizes an algorithm to detect insider trading. He tells you that your account has been flagged under SEC Rule 10b. 5. You feel the floor drop out from under you. You repeat that it was an accident. You beg him to look at your trading history. You have never bought anything but fractional shares of blue chip companies. He tells you the restriction will remain in place pending a formal investigation. He advises you to seek legal counsel. He hangs up. The call ends. You are sitting in the same apartment you have always lived in. You have $10 million and you are entirely powerless. Level 5, the tripwire. 2 weeks pass. You go to work. You come home, you check the app 30 times a day. The padlock icon never disappears. Your rent is now 15 days late. Your credit card company has started calling you from different area codes. You are drowning in debt while staring at an 8-figure bank account. On a Tuesday night at 9:15 p.m., you open the app out of pure habit. The yellow banner is gone. The padlock icon is missing. The screen reads, "Cash available for withdrawal, $10,380,000. You do not know if the investigation is over or if the system simply glitched. You do not care. Panic and desperation override your logic. You need to make some of this money real before they lock it again. You navigate to the transfer page. You know that any bank transfer over $10,000 automatically generates a currency transaction report to the federal government. You do not want to trigger another algorithm. You do not want another investigator looking at your account. You decide to fly under the radar. You type $9,999 into the transfer box. You press confirm. The transfer shows as pending. You let out a breathless laugh. It worked. You decide to secure a little more. You type another $9,999 into the box. You press confirm. The screen flashes white. A red banner appears. Your account has been permanently frozen under suspicion of illegal structuring. You stare at the words. You just committed a federal crime by deliberately splitting transactions to evade reporting requirements. The system did not catch the insider trading because there was no insider trading. The system caught exactly what you just did. You drop your phone on the desk. You cover your face with your hands. Level 6, the federal mail. 3 days later, the postal worker rings your doorbell at 10:14 a.m. You sign for a thick manila envelope sent via certified mail. The return address belongs to the United States Department of the Treasury, Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. You sit at your kitchen island and slice the envelope open with a butter knife. The paper is heavy and watermarked. The document informs you that your brokerage account has been seized under Title 31, United States Code, Section 5324. The funds are no longer frozen. They are subject to civil asset forfeiture. The letter states that you engaged in a pattern of transactions designed to evade the Bank Secrecy Act reporting requirements. There is a secondary notice attached from the Department of Justice. You are the target of an active criminal investigation. The penalty for structuring is up to 5 years in federal prison and a fine of up to $250,000. You walk to your bedroom closet and pull down the shoebox on the top shelf. You open it and take out your passport. You place it on the kitchen counter next to the federal notice. You stare at the small blue booklet. You realize you cannot leave the state. You cannot go to an airport. If a police officer pulls you over for a broken taillight, your name will trigger a felony alert in the National Crime Information Center database. Your physical world instantly shrinks to the square footage of your apartment and the route to your office. You pull the blinds shut. You lock the deadbolt. You sit in the center of your living room, listening to the sound of cars passing outside, wondering which one is going to pull into your driveway. Level 7, the retainer. You do not go to work on Monday. You drive downtown to a glass high-rise that houses a white-collar criminal defense firm. The waiting room smells faintly of expensive leather and lemon polish. You are led into a conference room with a sprawling view of the city skyline. A man in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit sits across from you. He reviews the Treasury notices without changing his expression. He explains that the system does not care about the accidental stock purchase anymore. The fat finger trade was an anomaly, but the two $9,999 transfers were intentional, documented actions that broke federal law. The government does not have to prove you were laundering money. They only have to prove you tried to hide the transfer size. You did. The lawyer slides a 12-page contract across the mahogany table. He will take the case, interface with the federal prosecutors, and attempt to prevent your indictment. His fee is a $50,000 flat retainer plus 35% of any assets he successfully recovers from the forfeiture. You do not have $50,000. You have exactly $142.11 in your checking account. You tell him this. He slides a second piece of paper across the table. It is an agreement to place a lien on your parents' house, which you must ask them to co-sign. You pick up the pen. You catch your reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city. The face looking back at you does not belong to an honest employee anymore. It belongs to a suspect. You press the pen to the paper and sign your name. Level 8, the confession. 14 months pass. You sit in a windowless room inside the federal courthouse. The air conditioning is set to 64 degrees. Your lawyer sits to your left. An assistant United States attorney sits across from you, flanked by 2 IRS criminal investigation agents. Your account has been locked for 427 days. The stock you bought crashed 8 months ago. Because the assets were liquidated to cash before the freeze, the $10 million survived the market collapse, preserved in a federal holding account. The prosecutor opens a thin gray folder. He offers a non-prosecution agreement. The Department of Justice will drop the criminal structuring charges and close the investigation. In exchange, you must agree to a voluntary civil forfeiture of 40% of the total seized funds. You must also sign a sworn statement admitting that you willfully engaged in deceptive financial practices. You look at your lawyer. He gives you a microscopic nod. If you fight it in court and lose, you go to federal prison. If you sign the paper, you walk out the door today as a free citizen. You are being asked to permanently record a lie in the federal archives. You are being asked to label yourself a financial criminal to buy your own money back from the government. You do not argue. You do not defend your character. You pull the document toward you and initial the bottom of all 3 pages. You sign the final line. The prosecutor closes the folder and leaves the room. Level 9. The liquidation. The machinery of the state operates with agonizing slowness. It takes another 60 days for the paperwork to clear, the bureaucratic hurdles. The federal government extracts its $4,152,000 forfeiture directly from the holding account. Your lawyer automatically routes his 35% contingency fee from the remainder. You sit at your kitchen table with a calculator. You subtract the forfeiture. You subtract the legal fees. You calculate the short-term capital gains tax you will owe the IRS on the initial stock sale, which must be paid by April. The numbers shrink with every keystroke. On a Tuesday morning at 8:30 a.m., your phone vibrates. It is a notification from your local bank. An incoming wire transfer has settled. You open the application, the screen loads. Your available checking balance is $1,845,112. The $10,450,000 fortune you held in your hand a year and a half ago has been systematically dismantled by the ecosystem you accidentally triggered. You stare at the 7-figure number. It is still more money than you have ever seen in your life. It is enough to pay off your debts. It is enough to release the lien on your parents' house. You close the app and place the phone face down on the table. You stand up, put on your coat, and drive to your office building. You walk into your manager's office. You do not give 2 weeks' notice. You place your keycard on his desk, turn around, and walk out of the building forever. Level 10. The paranoia. The refrigerator in your new kitchen emits a low, pulsing hum. You are sitting on a heavy oak stool that does not tilt. The recessed lighting above you is perfectly still. It is 2:14 p.m. on a Thursday. You have nowhere to be. You open your phone and tap the banking app icon. The screen loads to reveal a balance of $1,214,080. You paid your taxes. You cleared your debts. You bought this modest house in a quiet neighborhood. You survived the system. You navigate to the bill pay section to settle your monthly electricity charge of $118.50. Your thumb hovers over the submit button. A spike of cold adrenaline shoots through your collarbone. Your breathing becomes shallow. You stare at the transfer mechanism. You remember the yellow banner? You remember the padlock icon. You remember the flat voice of the investigator asking for the last 4 digits of your social security number. Your hand begins to tremble slightly. You cancel the transaction. You close the app. You stand up and walk to the front window, peering through the gap in the blinds at the empty street. You have over $1 million sitting in cash, fully cleared, perfectly legal, but you cannot spend it. Every digital transfer feels like a tripwire. Every purchase feels like a signal sent to a silent room full of agents waiting to take it all away again. You turn back toward the kitchen, you walk over to the drawer, take out your car keys, and prepare to drive to the local utility office to pay the bill with a paper money order. You survived the error. You kept the wealth, but the machine broke you in the process.